listening to Big World Network.
Skyfire, Episode 5, written and read by Arthur W. Johnson. Seamus remained peacefully asleep aboard the Irish Lassie, haunted by continued memories of the past in his dreams. As he entered Limerick by the east gate, he couldn't help but get the feeling that people looked at him suspiciously. He had to remind himself that a guilty look brought those stares a lot quicker than a cheerful composure. He spotted a sign reading "Platter and Pint," rubbed his hollow belly, and set off for a meal. Just outside the pub, he dropped his pack, heavier with the hide from the coracle rolled up inside. He hoped someone would find the hollow frame and get some use from it, but not too soon. He had hidden it in the bushes about a half a mile upstream and walked the remaining distance to Limerick. He pulled the coins from his pocket and counted them. He had not checked to see how much Fahey had given him, but he didn't want to ask for food and not have enough money to pay. Satisfied, he entered and ate his fill, anxious to be on his way. He hadn't taken time to notice the other occupants of the pub before going to the outbuilding. As the back door closed behind him, a portly man asked his neighbor, "Did you see how fast he put that stew away?" "Aye, in a bit of a hurry, if you ask me." "And without a pint to wash it with," the larger man said. "Do you think someone was after him, you would?" His friend nodded and sipped his pint. He wiped his mouth and asked, "By the way, did you hear about the young Lord Mayfair?" "No, what did he do now?" "Then you haven't heard. It's not what he's done, but what was done to him." "What, did someone finally flog him?" "Worse, killed him." "You don't say. Where?" Returning from the outbuilding, Seamus opened the door just as the neighbor replied, "'Twas in Mayfield Manor up in Athlone, it was." Seamus noticed the men look up as he quietly pulled the door shut and walked straight through to the front door. He was glad he had paid for the meal before he ate. Outside he picked up his bundle and with longer than usual strides made tracks for the south gate. The tale of his deed had already overtaken him, and he could almost feel the pursuit of those appointed to capture and bring him back. He felt the hot burn of hemp on his neck and raised his hand to rub away the thought. He couldn't believe that an Irishman, true and noble of soul, as Father O'Connor would put it, should have to swing from a rope for ridding the world of the scum off the privy. The feeling of being alone outran him again as he walked toward the Kenmare, and for the first time in years he longed to see his mother's gentle face. Life had been so cruel to her. The loss of his older brother in childbirth and his own hard birth were bad enough, but to lose the last child and her life together was too much. He wondered if he would ever visit those 3 graves again. He wondered if he would ever visit Patricia's final resting place. The mid-morning sun warmed Seamus's face as he walked through the streets of Kilgarvan. He stopped for a late breakfast in a pub where the people were cheerful. While he was there, he asked one of the locals for directions to the Kenmare. "Why, lad, you're about to fall into it as you swallow that meal." "It's just down the track a hop or two." "How far then is it to Dursey Island?" Seamus asked. "Off to the New World, are you, lad?" another man asked. "Couple of days should see you there. Do you know the cove?" Seamus was surprised. Apparently a lot of young men came this route, for it seemed to be a matter of routine to point the way. "I've heard of it, but I've not seen it." Of course, why else would you be asking? "When you get to Erie's, steer a course away from the bank toward the south and follow the track across country to Alihi's, and you'll save yourself miles of walking. That's the end of your journey then, lad. Or should I say the beginning?" Seamus realized the vastness of the adventure unfolding before him. He was excited about the prospect, but at the same time longed for the security of home, which he would never again see. He knew that loss would niggle at him, but he would just have to invent his own form of security. As he approached the bridge, he looked back and waved a final thank you to the innkeeper and the other gentlemen who were standing in the doorway. He crossed over and headed downstream along the slowly moving ribbon of water. He wondered how many young men those two had watched over the bridge with a farewell wave. He covered a lot of ground that day, wondering all the while if he would meet a great number of travelers waiting for a ship out of Ireland. Perhaps he would make a friend and cut through the loneliness of the trek. The empty road wound gracefully through the thicket around the base of a hill, leading to another glade. He paid little attention to what lay ahead until he saw the stonework. Like a ghost from the past, the old Norman castle stood above the trees, its ramparts crumbled away by the voracious appetite of Father Time. The ivy climbing the south wall took part in the feast by devouring the mortar between the stones all the way to the top of the walls. Most of the tower above the northeast corner had plunged from existence, leaving the naked stone steps to bear the brunt of storms yet to come. Sunlight played across the inner walls in such profusion that it was obvious there was no roof. Clearly the castle was no longer occupied, yet he sensed the souls of the past skulking about the halls and battlements where they had fallen and long ago rotted away. He found a message chiseled roughly into the stone by the entrance and touched the coarse chips as he read. The ghosts of men ye must confess, if peaceful sleep ye desire to possess. For o'er the ramparts they shall roam, lost and cold in search of home. That ye disturb their earthly quest shall prey upon thy peaceful rest, and thou shalt see the crimson blade in every restful shaded glade, where thou wouldst dare to lay thy head and make thy soft and slumbering bed. Confess thy sins and thou shalt sleep, thy spirit's locked within this keep. A chill possessed him as he read the last line. He eyed the massive oak door, which seemed to be rotting as he watched. He didn't trust it to keep the ghosts from all the previous confessions of murder left on its doorstep. He resolved to find a priest and make his confession, sending his own ghost back here to molder. The clouds certainly formed quickly, making him feel morbid from the weight of his albatross. As his gray sky darkened, he came upon a willow overhanging the bank of the Kenmare. It made him think of Patricia. He decided it would be his lodging for the night. As he curled up to sleep, he wished she were alive. She would have gotten such joy out of an adventure like this. But if she were alive, would any of this have happened? He had only intended to scare Mayfair into releasing her. He had lost control when the Lord said she was dead, and then had taunted him. Perhaps sleeping there would bring happy dreams for a change. He was tired of the sleepless nights. As he dozed, he briefly saw her violet eyes before his dream changed. "Won't kill me, not for a dead girl." "Not again!" Seamus yelled as he sat up. The eyes had changed to a horrid red pair looking at themselves and at him at the same time. "Not again," he sobbed as he dropped his forehead onto his knees. "I'll lock you in that keep, Mayfair." He paced beneath the willow until he calmed down and wore himself out enough to try sleeping again. His sleep was fitful at best. Morning found him sitting on the bank of the Kenmare, mindlessly throwing pebbles into the water. He wondered why he hadn't dreamt of Patricia. He was sure it would have been more peaceful. Lord Mayfair had been there, and he was dead. Father O'Connor was a regular visitor to his dreams, and he was dead. His mother even put in an appearance occasionally, and she too was gone. But not Patricia, the one he most longed to see. As the sun climbed the eastern clouds, he ate some of the bread from his pouch, then continued his journey to the sea. Finally stirred from his dreams of the past, Seamus woke gently and had trouble remembering where he was, since the seas were so calm they didn't rock the boat. Looking around at the trappings below deck, it all came back. He was at sea, of course, and bound for the New World. He supposed he should go on deck and see what he could do to help.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.